that is the end of the saga of the error. Definitely we're getting into the wrong season to be finishing this project, but I don't care. I want her done. At this point, we are just flying by the seat of our pants.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode today. I have some exciting updates on some whips. I have a potential challenge that I've run into with one of them that I'm eager to see where we're at today, to see how I should move forward with that one, as well as a few acquisitions that I made over the past week or so. Before I get into all of that though, if you're new here, like I said, I am Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I've been knitting for the past few years now. I think that this year is particularly different for my knitting because it feels like the first year that I've truly kind of harnessed the craft, and I'm getting to play more with it. Whereas for the past 2 years, I really felt like I was always seeking learning something with everything. And while that's still very much just a core part of my personality when it comes to being a hobbyist, I definitely feel like this year I'm here for the joy of it. I'm here for the experimentation, and I'm truly here to embrace the play of it all, which is good because since the beginning, my philosophy around making has always been that the imperfections are what make something so perfectly handmade. So if that feels like something that you could get on board with, I would love it if you would come hang out with us more often. I do post a weekly video every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So please do consider subscribing so that you never miss a post. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it all today, let me tell you quickly what I'm wearing. It's something I haven't actually worn in a little bit, and I just kind of threw it on today. If I'm very honest, it's because I didn't blend my makeup very well, and it's a little warm in here, so I didn't want to wear a long sleeve shirt. I'm trying to resist the air conditioning for as long as I can, but it's getting a little toasty here in Connecticut. So I decided today to throw on my Netty scarf, which was a test knit that I had done, I think around this time last year, actually, for Lily Kate France. This pattern, it comes with a small and a large, so a tiny scarf and then more of a shawl. And it's the only thing of its kind that I've actually made. I'm not much of one for knitting accessories, but there was something about the look of this particular tiny scarf that just really spoke to me. And the making process of it was actually even more fun than I anticipated it being. I just really liked the look of the accessory. I didn't expect to enjoy the process so much, and I really did. So much so that I've actually made 2 of them. The second one was a gift for my aunt, and it was a little bit modified just based on how much yarn I had. But the good news is this kind of scarf, it is one that has a halfway point. So it is an all over lace pattern. But if you're comfortable with making modifications, and I would say particularly comfortable because there is a little bit of math involved, you definitely can take this pattern and use whatever yarn quantity you have, just weigh half of it, and then knit to a point where you're left with half of your quantity of yarn, a little bit more than that because there is a center spine that you'll still have to make, but you can kind of use your judgment to create this sort of accessory with whatever amount of yarn you have. Another nice thing about it is that it's all knit in one go. So it has I think it's an I-cord edge to it, and that is all incorporated in the process. So there's no going back and picking up stitches or anything like that. I've thoroughly enjoyed making this. I don't wear it quite so often, but I have to say that I really like the way that I've kind of just thrown it on today with an otherwise basic outfit, and it feels a little bit dressier. And I know some people are into the Me Made May thing. I haven't been participating in that, but this would be a good option, to just make sure you have something me made on if that's what you're into. So that is the Netty scarf. Lily Kate France. I highly recommend the pattern along with all of Lily's patterns. And you know what? With that, why don't we segue right into another one of Lily's patterns? So let's go ahead and dive on in. I do just want to start today by talking about my Take Turns tank by Lily Kate France. I mentioned in the last podcast that this pattern is one that Lily Kate herself has sort of reimagined in past years. And I have to say that it's one of the reasons I really truly respect her as a designer is the fact that she comes back to older patterns with a more updated and kind of critical eye and recognizes the things that she maybe wishes she had done differently or just other ways to kind of update the pattern without having to always be out with something new. And I really do love that because obviously styles change, but so do design styles. And I think that returning to older patterns that you've released and updating them in both a technical way, but then also in a style way, I just think is a really refreshing way to take on being a designer. So originally, this tank top, if I'm honest, I would have passed up on the design. It was actually created as a solid tank top that had a sort of like boucle or like fuzzier textured yarn stripe on the back. And for me, it just wouldn't be my style. So I absolutely love that Lily Kate herself went back and said, let me make this a little bit more universally intriguing for people, or I guess just a little bit more universally like accepted as a classic design. So she did that by going back to the pattern and actually writing it to have stripes throughout. And she didn't just slap a note on the pattern. She's actually written for the individual sizes exactly how you are going to make your stripes so that they always work out perfectly. And that attention to detail, I just think is so underrated. I love that she took the time to do that. Now, last year, I had knit the Sailor Swift tank by Veronica Lindberg, and it is by far my most worn knit. I wear it in the summer, I wear it in the winter. Under other things, it's a great layering piece. So once I had finished knitting the Sailor Swift tank, I was eager to get my hands on another pattern that was similar and one that I could knit with a more summery yarn. Since my Sailor Swift top I did make out of Knitting for Olive merino, I just kind of wanted a similar thing without having to repeat knitting the same pattern, and I had this hobby seashell yarn in a black and a tan, and I just thought that that would make for a really great summery staple. At that point, Lily actually reached out and said, I think that you would like this pattern, and she gifted it to me, and it's been sitting in my library until this year when I got around to casting it on. So anyway, here is the tank top. I did actually try this on last week to confirm that I was knitting it in the right size, since I was going based off of my gauge and my desired size, but I knew that that was slightly off according to the gauge of the pattern. Here I am holding it backwards again. So I did try this on, and it seems like it is working up in exactly the size that I wanted it to. I am knitting it in the size 3 while looking for the fit of more of a size 4 or 5. And on me, that translates to about 0 to an inch or so of ease. Now, when I tried this on last week, I was kind of just at that, having met at the underarm point. And so since then, I've actually gotten quite a bit done. I'm pretty pleased with where this is going. I have yet to figure out if I want to make this kind of tuckable as my Sailor Swift tank is, since that one I knew I would never really wear on its own. I would definitely be wearing that one with high-waisted pants completely tucked in, and then always with kind of something over it. I really do tend to wear that one with a blazer. It's rare that I'll just wear it on its own. So I wanted to make sure that that one was long enough that I could fully tuck it and not worry about it kind of creeping up back out of my pants. This one, on the other hand, since this is made out of a summery fiber, the Hobie Seashell yarn is a linen viscose cotton blend, not too dissimilar from Drops Belle or Sanasgarn Lena. It's definitely going to fit with a little bit more of a drape to it, and so I feel like I could see myself wearing this one more with like a little French tuck or maybe untucked and a little more cropped. I haven't totally decided yet what I'm going to do. And so right now my plan is to knit until I finished up with the current ball of the black yarn that I'm working with. At that point, I'm going to go back and address the finishes on the collar and around the arms, which, by the way, are worked with a little bit of ribbing and then a rolled hem. So in that way too, it's going to be that little bit different from the Sailor Swift top. These two are just kind of my direct comparisons. In fact, when I'm done with this, I could even let you know kind of the compare and contrast of the two tops if that's something that you're interested in, so that you know which kind of like basic striped tank top is the one for you. If that information would be valuable, just let me know, and when I finish this, I'll dig out the Sailor Swift so that we can do a direct comparison. But the Sailor Swift tank top actually has a kind of modified I-cord edge that you go back and pick up and knit, and the way that that is written, it is intended to lay a little bit more flat instead of like a completely bulbous I-cord. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how this one turns out with a little bit of ribbing and then a rolled edge worked. I'm curious to see how that's going to look, especially in the fiber that I've chosen. So yeah, I'm going to finish up the black yarn that I have, which I'll probably be able to do in the next stripe that I work, since they are really chunkier stripes in the main color and then just that skinny little stripe in the contrast. And where I am right now is working the first row of one of the black stripe sections. So once I finish that up, I'll go work the finishes, and that way I'll have a better idea of how this is going to fit. And then I can really try it on with some jeans and see how I plan to style it and let that kind of be the determining factor on how long I want to make it. But so far, I've been really enjoying this. I will say too, if you're someone who struggles with plant fiber yarns and you find that they hurt your hands to work with, I would recommend trying, if you haven't already, switching over to wooden or bamboo needles to knit with those plant fibers. What I found was that I only cast this on with wooden needles to try and make it a little bit easier to travel with. But I accidentally found out that for me personally, this slippery kind of yarn is a lot more comfortable for me to work up on those wooden needles versus the metal ones. And in my experience, what I figured out is that when I'm using the plant fiber on my metal needles, I tend to like really hold on to the yarn, and I find myself really trying to control those stitches so much so that they're not slip sliding around. And for me, that was kind of what was leading to a little bit of an earlier fatigue in my hands. And just switching to the wooden needles helped to slow down the process a little bit so that I didn't feel like I had to grip onto the yarn for dear life. And instead, I could knit a little bit more naturally. I am knitting this up on 3.5mm needles, which I do believe are the recommended needle size for the pattern. It's just that my yarn is providing me with a little bit of a bigger gauge. And as of today, I cannot believe it. This guy has been on my needles for 50 days. It's definitely reserved for my more mindless knitting times, for when we're watching soccer, when we're just chilling out, when I just have a few minutes to sneak in a row. This is the project that I pull out, but it is definitely a goal of mine to finish this. I would say within the next 2 weeks would be ideal. So that is what I have for you today on the Take Turns Tank by Lily Kate France. Actually, quick anecdote before I totally come off of that subject. When I'm knitting stripes especially, I like to use a row counter of sorts. Now, in recent times, my favorite way to count rows is usually just to make what I call a little like link-a-monkey chain of stitch markers, usually in a rainbow pattern, all leading to a progress keeper at the end. And so if my stripes are 8 rows, then I will have 7 stitch markers leading up to an 8th progress keeper. And that is how I will count my rows. You could definitely do the same thing by just purchasing an actual row counter chain where it has the numbers on it for you. But those stripes are so wide that that was actually just a little bit unruly for me. Not to mention the fact that with it being my mindless knitting, I find that using those chains, I do have to like stop for a second and make sure that I'm slipping into the next stitch marker, and that just takes a moment. I also have used a safety pin attached to a row counter that you would typically put onto a straight knitting needle. So one that has the little dial, and that way you can kind of just turn row by row. But again, I was finding that when I get to the beginning of round, I would have to pause everything and go and twist that little row counter to make sure that I've moved on to the next row. And that just took that extra second that made each round a little bit longer and again, less mindless, which is always my goal with this project. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I actually forgot to mention that I had popped into Brooklyn General Store, and they have a selection of the akanoraknits accessories things. And I was looking to purchase a chain row counter that had the numbers on it. And they had just a little box that said row counter akanoraknits. And without thinking, I just assumed that that was what it was. So I purchased that while I was there. And when I got home, I realized that it was one of these row clicker counters. I would call this more of like a people counter. And I was actually so annoyed because I thought, why would I ever use this? It's so fiddly to have this around. Like, oops. And I actually thought maybe I would just give it away. But then one day I couldn't find my row counter and I just grabbed this, and I found that it's such an efficient way for counting rows. It's super mindless when I'm knitting while we're watching soccer. I'll just be knitting in the round. I hit my stitch marker and I'll have this sitting on my lap and I quickly click it. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to pay attention to it. I don't have to sit there spinning things very, precisely making sure that I get to the next number. I just quickly click this and then move on. And then I don't have to look at it until I know I'm getting close to the amount of rows that I'm supposed to knit. So I've actually been weirdly into my little people counter, row counter. The only qualm that I have with this is I wish that it wasn't just free floating. So I would love for this to be fixed onto like a little bracelet or something. I thought it would be perfect if it was like a slap bracelet that had the row counter on it so that I could still keep it with that project and just have it ready for me when I need it. Or if it itself was like a stitch marker and the beginning of round row, something like that where it could be fixed to my project and I don't have to keep track of it. So if you know of something like this that fits those guidelines, please point me in the right direction. Or if you figured out a way to hack this little row counter and make it one of those things, I've been looking for like a hole or something that I could affix a safety pin or something like that to this. And I don't think that it exists. But if you have a solution, I'd love to know because I've been really loving this as my row counter. So that's a little tip if you like to be a little bit more quick and hands free. Anyway, that's the take turns tank plus little tip about row counters. Next up, let's finally chat about the littlest bit of progress that has been made to my Stitches sweater by Veronica Lindberg Kutova Kika. This is a Colorwork yoke, circular yoke sweater that's knit from the top down, and I am heavily modifying mine to make it into a quarter zip, but it's instead a quarter snap. That's the vision. I don't know if that has an official name, so I always just have to say like it's a quarter zip, but with snaps instead. And in doing so, I'm doing that by felting the sweater. I feel like it's been a little bit since we've actually been able to talk about this because I ran into an error in the pattern. I'm knitting this in the 4XL, and I think I'm the first person to have done that according to Ravelry. And so I found this error in the pattern. It really held me up for quite a few weeks now. However, I have finally gotten a solution from Veronica's team member, Ida, who responded to the support email. And after a little back and forth, we finally figured out the right way to communicate and then resolve this issue. Let me pop my sweater onto Helena the Hanga and I will just quickly refresh where we're at. Here she is. I am so excited to finally be back to this project. This has been a little bit of a passion project for me. So I'm knitting this project super off gauge and in the size 4XL with the idea that I will be felting it and it will be shrinking. I figured out what size to knit it in and all of that by knitting up a swatch, not this one, but a different one, and then going ahead and felting it. This is the felted swatch. So I actually took measurements before, after, mathed it all out, and figured out how much shrinkage I should expect. And that is how I determined what size I would be knitting. So yeah, this is the felted swatch. It's a really dense and kind of more stiff fabric. So my goal is for this in the end to be sort of reminiscent of a fleece quarter zip or one of those kind of Sherpa quarter zips. That's the vibe, like a little more outerwear. Definitely we're getting into the wrong season to be finishing this project, but I don't care. I want her done. And I am knitting this whole project out of a multitude of different yarns, some of which I had thrifted, some of which were gifted by my Aunt Virginia, some of which I purchased on my own just to fill out the color story here, but they're all single ply, 100% wool yarns. You'll also notice that looking at mine versus the other versions on Ravelry, the pattern is written to use, I want to say 3 colors or so, and due to yarn constraints and also just seeking joy with this project, I decided to make each individual Colorwork section its own color and then have the actual stitches font that goes around the yoke kind of be the main feature by giving that a white background and then the color that I used for the letters themselves. It's a really beautiful neutral kind of brown base that has little flecks of different colors in it, which I think just picks up on all of the colors around it. Now, the only other modification that I made, obviously other than all of the things that I'm doing in order to felt this, is that I shifted the chart that I was using for the word stitches, which goes around, which repeats itself around the yoke, so that in the center front, you would actually see the word stitches. Whereas for some of the sizes, this word actually starts and ends in the center front. I wanted to make sure that the actual center of the word stitches, so right between that T and the C, that is the center front stitch. And I literally just did that by kind of chopping the chart in half and moving half of it to the other side so that my beginning of round, instead of being the S of stitch, which is how it repeats, mine starts with halfway through the C. Now, this has turned into a little bit of a saga over the past few weeks, but as we have it right now, I have officially split. I have my sleeves on the stitch holders and I have just worked a couple of rows into the body. The error that I found was resolved and I'm so grateful for Veronica and her team for figuring that out for me so that I could move forward. And I just wanted to include a little tip because this wound up working best to communicate what I was seeing as the error. If you run into a similar problem where the stitch counts that you're given in a pattern don't add up to a full round and you're trying to communicate that to a designer, what I actually wound up doing was drawing out each individual 400 plus stitches in a circle on my iPad. And then according to the stitch counts given in the pattern, I went through with another color and I crossed them out as they were stated for the back, for the sleeves, for the front, new cast on stitches, and showed how in the end there were several stitches unaccounted for. And that just seems like that was the best way to communicate it. They did say that they appreciated the visual because it was just kind of a lot to explain with just numbers involved, and we're all visual people. So they did say that that was very helpful. I did also suggest in my email that moving forward, they might want to consider adding that little note in a Ravelry page to let someone know that certain sizes have not been tested for whatever reason, just so that you do have your guard up as you're going, because I did not. I assumed that all the sizes had been tested for this pattern, and as far as I could tell on Ravelry, it appears that the 4 and 5XL had not been. And they did say that they thought that that was a good idea and they would consider doing that in the future. So just so you guys know, all of that was communicated, the issues resolved. They said that they're working on getting it resolved in the actual pattern. So right now I just have an email with the information, and I'm hoping to see a Ravelry update soon, but that is the end of the saga of the error. So as we have it now, I actually did just finish up a ball of yarn in the body. Now, I am on a little bit of a tight yarn crunch. So I'm trying to figure out right now how I plan to proceed with the rest of this garment by utilizing all the different colors that I have, because I do still have quite a bit of yarn left over from these colors. And yet still keeping it true to the design where the color work is only in the yoke. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet. I am following the joy with this one. This is totally a just fun passion project. I'm eager just to play and see what happens as we go. But where we are right now, I think I need to stop and look at the amount of yarn that I have left, try to figure out how much yarn I've used so far, and then determine how I want to maybe incorporate some more color work into the sleeves, the body of the sweater itself. Do I want to just knit the bulk of this sweater, felt it, and then come back with some knit ribbed finishes for the hem and the cuffs? That would definitely save me on this kind of yarn. So I have to figure that all out, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I am officially moving forward with my project. I'll probably wind up bouncing back and forth from the sleeves to the body just to get a better overall picture of what's going on here. And I also still need to figure out exactly how I'm going to do the collar, as the final intention is to steek the front of this garment to then go back and add the snaps. And I'm either going to do that again with like additional ribbed finishes or just I-cord finishes or double knit finishes for a button placket and stuff. Or I might even go the route of maybe adding some sewn elements of a bias tape or something like that. If you have ideas or advice or whatever you think is the best idea, I would love to know, because really at this point we are just flying by the seat of our pants and figuring it out as we go. We're playing, and that is fun. So I'm just thrilled that there's finally an update on this. At this point, I do need to go figure out how much yarn I have and assess and address, and hopefully I will have an update for you in the next podcast. But as of today, this project has been on my needles for 69 days, which is kind of funny to me that it's not that much more than the Take Turns tank. So that's just what happens when you have multiple whips on the needles, huh? But yes, this is my very fun Stitch a Sweater by Veronica Lindberg. Last but not least is the project that has received the majority of my attention over the past week, since it is a test knit with a deadline that is literally right around the corner. So that is my Pearl sweater by Magdalena Parker. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that this is intended to come out within the coming week. It is an all-over cable knit design, drop shoulder sweater, knit from the top down, and its main feature is the beautiful seed stitch that is incorporated within the cables. Here we have it. This is another one that I did try on last week. I'm knitting mine out of Eddie Bauer Wool Alpaca, which is a superwash merino and alpaca blend yarn that was sold at Joann's for a brief period of time and now is basically impossible to find anywhere, which is unfortunate because I think I need more of it. So since we saw this last week, I went back and I knit half of the collar. This is a double layer folded over collar. So I knit the full first half of this plus the little bit that will fold in and then popped it onto some try-it-on tubing so that if I need to finish it out with a different yarn, I can do that. I also have gone through and knit the majority of one sleeve, and then I'm working on catching the second sleeve up to the same point as the first one, all while the rest of the body is on hold, and I've just knit a few inches under the arm here. Now, as it stands, I have just a little bit of yarn left that I'm certain I will use up and then some to catch up the second sleeve to the first sleeve. After that, I only have 2 balls of this yarn left. And for context, what you see so far was worked up using a total of 5 balls of yarn. So just the other day, I did put out a feeler on my Instagram to ask if anyone had this Eddie Bauer yarn in stash in the colorway Bright White. If it was in the same dye lot, great. If not, that's okay too. Just to see if I would have access to it since it's not something that I could purchase in store anymore. I did check Ravelry yarn stashes. No one's willing to give up this yarn, and I do not blame them because I really enjoyed working with it. But I just wanted to make sure that if I needed more yarn, I'd be able to get it before I really focused in on getting this done for the deadline. It does fortunately look like there are a few people who would be willing to give up a ball here and there, and maybe even someone who has about 3 balls, which is what I feel like I'm going to need to finish this. So that gave me the confidence to press on, keep on knitting. And ultimately, what the plan is right now is to hopefully today wrap up this other sleeve to the extent that the first one is at which point I'm going to do a mid-project block because I know from my gauge swatch and just from having actually blocked the beginning of this project once before, this yarn really does block out. Now, I wish I wasn't in this position in a test knit. I'm very passionate about making sure that I'm timely for the designers that I test knit for, but I don't know what the heck it was about this project. I had so many false starts. I really struggled with the gauge on this one. And so I started it in a different yarn, had to block it, wait for it to block. That wasn't working out well. I knit a new gauge swatch with different yarns, had to block that, wait for that to block out. I started this one, but wanted to confirm that the gauge was going to be correct, had to wait for that to block out. And now here we are in a position where I don't think I have enough yarn. I think I could say with confidence, I don't have enough yarn to finish this project. And the deadline is literally next week. So I'm going to do my absolute best to get Magdalena all of the information that she needs from me, while also making sure that in the end, I have a wearable garment. So I'm going to block this out today. Where I've paused on the sleeves is actually a full cable repeat short of what she recommends in the pattern. But I just know that this body is going to stretch out, which with a drop shoulder sweater means that that shoulder seam is going to fall further and further down the shoulder, and ultimately means that the sleeves shouldn't need to be quite as long as they look like they need to be right now. So I think it's really crucial in this circumstance to give it that block, take the time that I need to get that accurate measurement, and then be able to assess what my yarn needs are from there. In a perfect world, I will block this overnight tonight. She'll be dry tomorrow. I'll pop a fan on her, and maybe the sleeves will be at the right length that all they need is their cuff. At which point I will get back to knitting on the body of this and use basically as much yarn as I possibly can to knit on the body. And then I'll know, do I just need another ball of yarn to finish out the cuffs and the hem? Do I need another 2 or 3 balls of yarn to actually knit more length in the body, knit more length in the sleeves? It's just one of those things I'm not going to know, unfortunately, until I block it. So I'm going to do my absolute best, but I think I've just had so many little hurdles along the way with this one, more so than I can remember having in any other project before. So it's just one of those things. You have to roll with the punches. And regardless, I will get this done as soon as I possibly can. So after filming, I will take some before blocking footage of this, and I'll have then put that on the screen for you to see here, because I'm really, really excited to see how this one blocks out. It's going to be a huge transformation, considering the fact that we have cables, superwash, alpaca, all of the things that just create for a very drapey and growing and blocking type sweater. But that's where we're at so far. I will let you know when this pattern releases. I could tell you so far that the pattern is impeccably written. It's beautifully detailed. If you've ever knit one of Magdalena Parker's patterns before, you know that she is the most thorough in her writing style. So if you've ever seen a design of hers that you've been interested in, let this be your sign to just go for it, because I promise you, beginner friendly, expert friendly, anything in between. She just does a beautiful, 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 thorough job of writing her patterns. So be on the lookout for this one. I will announce it on Instagram and then in the next podcast whenever this pattern is released. And I guess just again, if you happen to have the Eddie Bauer Woolpaca yarn in the colorway Bright White and Stash, I will put the lot number that I have on the screen here if you're interested in selling a few balls of it. If you want to leave a comment down below, drop me an email, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you. So that is the Pearl Sweater Test Knit by Magdalena Parker. Today, mine has been on the needles in this version for the past 25 days. All right, so those are the projects that I've been working on, and I do have some acquisitions here. So last week, I had finished my Salty Days sweater, and to be honest, it took everything in me to not put it on to wear today because I've literally been living in it. It's my new favorite sweater. It's my first sweater that I knit in cotton. Every sweater that I've made has been wool, and I have a crocheted sweater in cotton that I adore. So I'm not surprised that I love the feel of this knit cotton sweater. And that led me to go back to the one of the final Joann's remaining around here to see if I could get my hands on some more of that K&C Knit and Crochet Essential Cotton yarn, which it was made out of. And when I got to Joann's, I did snag some of that K&C Essential Cotton yarn. But then literally as I was about to leave, the employees at the store were opening up brand new boxes that they had just received a shipment of. And it was all yarn, and good yarn at that. So the yarn stash is overflowing at this point, and this bag of yarn is certainly not going to help that. But I got such a good deal on everything. I'm just such a bargain girly. I know I'm going to use these things. I do have kind of plans for everything here, so I'm just really excited about everything. All of the yarn was 50% off while I was there, and let me show you what I got. Starting with the K&C Essential Cotton, I was able to snag a sweater's quantity in black, which, I mean, classic, can't go wrong. I actually was thinking that I think the Salty Days sweater, the version that I had finished last week, would look so good in a black. So I'm kind of thinking of something similar, maybe not exactly the same, just to not repeat making the same thing over and over. But I do think that something with that kind of lacy texture would look really, really good in a black. I also picked up a little bit more in white just because you can never go wrong with a white cotton. And then I also had spotted this variegated kind of denim-y blue color. I bet the color, it's called Denali, the color. And it's basically a white base that has just an indigo kind of wash to it. In some spots, it's a little more saturated. In others, it's more of a speckled. And I thought that either for myself or for my sister down the line, that would make a really fun, beachy sweater. So I was really, really pleased with that alone. But then I also figured that I should try maybe another cotton since the K&C brand is not going to be around anymore. And so when I saw this color in the Lion brand 24/7 Cotton DK, it was screaming my name. I love this color. It's called Grenadine. It is that perfect pinky, cool toned red that I love so much. And it is a little bit finer. The K&C is considered a DK weight yarn, but I would say it leans a little bit more on the side of a worsted weight. This one feels truly more like a DK. So I thought that that would be fun to play around with. And then they started pulling out some more fun bits and bobs. And you may have already spotted a few of them over in my yarn bowl there, but they pulled out these Patton's Croy sock yarns. And funny enough, I actually have an unfinished garment in a Patton's Croy sock yarn. It was in a purple color that I had bought on clearance way back when I first started knitting. But I love the fabric that I got out of that yarn. And when I saw these colors, they're just so my color palette. I thought it would be really fun to play around with them, especially because after making the Stitches sweater, I just am really craving more color work in my life. So there was this neutral color that I've actually seen every single time I've been in a Joann's or a Michael's, and I've always loved the look of it, but I've never picked it up. The color is called Flax. It's that really perfect kind of cool gray brown color. And then there was this variegated pinky, purpley, beigey color. This is called Brown Rose Marl. That's the perfect name for it. As well as this punchier color, which is called Geranium Colors. And it's another pinky red, but it has more purpley tones kind of spun into it. And I really thought that the flax colorway would be the perfect base for a colorwork sweater with either one of these. And so if you have any suggestions, I actually think that these two, they look like they were literally made to be together. And I think it would be really fun to knit something up with this as the main color and then this one with kind of a floral motif. I really just think that this would be a fun combination. So please let me know if you have any pattern suggestions. And then this one I think would be really great on its own, but I also think would work really beautifully in maybe more of a holiday kind of colorwork yoke sweater using something as a more neutral base. I do think it pairs so well with the flax colorway, but I was able to snag a sweater's quantity of this red one, whereas these two I really did purchase to kind of supplement with each other. But I would love to know your ideas anyway. If you have them, let me know. If you have ideas really for any of this yarn, I would love to hear it. I just think that having knit a cotton sweater, I want more of them in my life. I love the versatility of that smooth, cool cotton and how it can definitely be a lot more of a seasonally transitional piece for me. So please let me know if you have ideas for any of this yarn. I would love to hear it. And then while we're on the topic of ideas, I did want to just pick your brain for a moment on two things. The first one is that I'm going to be starting my sister's t-shirt soon. She fell in love with the look of the Maud tee by Petite Knit. So we're looking for something that's a short sleeve polo neck with a few buttons at the top, sweater that can be knit up on about a DK weight yarn. I did ask over on Instagram if anyone had other pattern suggestions, and I got a ton. So I'd like to know if you are interested in a pattern roundup of all of those different collared t-shirt sweaters that people suggested. There's so many there. So let me know if that's something that you're interested in. But I also wanted to ask if anyone has seen a pattern that resembles this store-bought sweater vest tank top situation that I spotted. It's a brand called Commence. They're always in my Instagram ads, and I think that they have really fun and interesting styles. And this one caught my eye as something that would be really interesting as a summer basic that's not so basic. Obviously, it's kind of combining the tiny scarf thing with a top. And I do think that I'd be more inclined to wear a tiny scarf if it was actually integrated into the top that I was wearing. I feel like somewhere I've seen a pattern that resembles this style, and I just can't for the life of me figure out what it was, or if it does exist, or if I made it up or what. But if you have a suggestion for a pattern that would get this job done of a tank top that has an integrated little scarf, I would love to know what your suggestion is. If we can't find one, is this something that we should just modify and make up together? Because I'm also completely down to do that. I think it would be really fun to knit this up in another linen viscose yarn blend for a nice kind of classy work top. This is something I could get away with wearing at work. I don't know about you, but I think it would look nice under a blazer too if the arms out isn't your thing. But I specifically love the little crochet edging around it. I just think it's a very sweet and classy, timeless top. So I would love to know if anyone can point me in the right direction to make something like that. And otherwise, that is all I have for you today. I'm sure that most of us are in the same boat where we're kind of trying to phase out of the cooler weather knits and then work our way into some warmer weather knits. So I would love to know, what is that number one thing that you are resisting the urge to cast on right now? I think for me, it's probably the matching top to my Cordelia skirt that I had made last year, but I just want to make sure that a couple of these projects get off of my needles before I get into those true summer knits. So I'd love to know, what is that thing for you? With all of that, I also want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. I'd love to know if you've made something for mom for Mother's Day. This year, I've actually gone the Etsy route. So I will have gifted those things to my mom by the time you've seen this video, because her birthday is actually today, the Saturday. So if you want to also wish Mama Knits a happy birthday in the comments, I'm sure she'd appreciate it. But we get double duty over here. So by the time you're watching this video, we will have already celebrated both my mom's birthday and Mother's Day. But happy Mother's Day to the moms out there. Let us know if you're celebrating with something handmade, and I hope you all enjoy the weekend. And otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it so much if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And like I had mentioned earlier, if you subscribe and ring the bell, you're going to be notified anytime I post a new video. But you can always count on a new video every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. With all of that, a big ol' thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. All right, you guys. Bye.